The book that I chose for Russell Chapter 8 on fantasy is Where the Wild Things Are, written and illustrated by Maurice Sendak. This was one of my favorite books as a child. I can remember my dad reading this book to me almost every night because I loved imagining traveling with the character to see where all the wild things are. And that's one of the best things about fantasies. There are different types of fantasy books, and this one focuses on how the main character starts in the primary world and goes to a fantasy world where all these unreal and magical things happen. Now, this type of fantasy book that this one is an enchanted journey. This reason why this one is an enchanted journey is the little boy in here who gets sent into his room, and then all of a sudden, while he's in there, things start growing and growing and growing until he's able to sail away and go on his enchanted journey to where all the wild things are. Another reason why this book is considered a fantasy book is because the characters in here, besides the boy in here, have human characteristic associated with them. They have legs, they have arms, they have two eyes, they have a nose, they have a mouth. Even though they might not look essentially like human traits, they have the general basic type of human traits. And this book, I kind of already told you what this book is about, but there's a little boy who always dressed up in this little costume, and he always did not the greatest things. Not the greatest things that mom and dad would have essentially like kept on doing them and doing them and doing them until he gets sent to his room without any supper. And then he travels, as I stated before, to where the wild things are. And here, when he's with the wild things, he becomes king of all the wild things. If you couldn't see it right there. He's having so much fun, not having any responsibility, being as loud as he wants to be, being as mischievous as he wants to be. I mean, even hanging from trees with all the wild things. But eventually, even though he's having all this fun, he starts to miss home. He knows that he has to go home soon. So he decides to sail on back. Now, in the meantime, this boy thinks it's been years and years and years since he's actually seen his family. Still sailing away back home. And then all of a sudden, he's back home. And it seemed like as if nothing had even happened. He just had supper waiting for him at his table. And I remember reading within the chapter that the story of the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy has this enchanted journey as well and ends up coming back as if nothing really happened, just like this boy did in Where the Wild Things Are. And that's one of the biggest debates on fantasy books like this, because it's supposed to make children think that there is a fantasy and things like this can sometimes happen. But within this book and in The Wizard of Oz, it kind of like forgets about the fantasy world in itself. But even though that this book does do that, it's still one of my favorite fantasy books, and I hope you enjoyed my book review.